Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast, where we talk about all things 3DO, the company, the console, and everything in between. I'm Bill, and this is Threk. How you doing, Threk?
Oh, Bill, I'm hanging in there. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Still recovering from post-Thanksgiving. You know, the usual. You ate too much and you feel like shit for like a month, and you never want to
I,
see turkey again.
I surprisingly didn't eat too much, but I know we made too much because there's still a bunch of turkey sitting in the fridge. Been doing my best to try to eat it, but
Yeah,
you,
it's kind of one
you,
of those. You kind of
it,
chip away at it.
like the thing is, like, the dark meat is so much better, so you go for that, and then when it's just the white meat left, you're like, fuck, god damn it, because
Yeah.
it's too dry, like you want to make it into like sandwiches, but which I might end up doing, but I prefer ham sandwiches.
That's
So
fair.
but that's just me. So, yeah, Thanksgiving was chill. Got 4 days off of work, so that was nice. Slept in, played some games, been grinding in Dragon Quest 3. Been stuck on a boss for a while, and it's, one of those things where it's like it gets you frustrated, so you're just like, fuck, I guess I'll just take a break. So taking a break right now just because, it's a tough boss, but I'll probably beat it eventually.
Oh,
I
yeah.
crossed 100 beaten games for the year, so now I'm like now that I've done it, like I've beaten 100 games in a year, I don't feel as like rushed to beat stuff now. So I'm just kind of, and that's probably what I'll be next year, just kind of more casual about stuff. Just like, I'll play whatever feels right.
That's how I've been this year, mostly because I've been focusing more on like anime than games this year. But it's been relaxing. I haven't really had to focus on anything.
Yeah, that's cool. I did buy, I don't know if I told everybody, but I bought all the Final Fantasies on Xbox. So I would like to play through all of those in the next like year and a half or whatever. So that would be like 16-ish game, 15 games, because I'll probably never play Final Fantasy 11. You can still play it. It is on Steam, but it's like $30 on top of the monthly subscription fee, which I have no idea what it is. And like, I'm not going to play that much of it because it's an MMO and I don't care about
Yeah,
MMOs. So,
and there's really
what
no
is the
point
guy
of
to
playing
do?
it. There's really no point of playing it when 14's right there. If you want a
Yeah,
really happy play.
I'm sure 11 has its dedicated fan base, but yeah, like 14 has a free trial and it's like the base game and the first two expansions are free. You can play up to like level 70 or something. So, there's already a lot of content there. So, and then hopefully at some point 16 will hit Xbox, probably next year. I think most likely that'll happen. So then I'll just play that one then. Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
and you can either like it or dislike it, like most people. It's very split down the middle with that one. I swear.
Yeah, yeah. I have no dog in the race, so we'll see. So. But yeah, the news this week, not a huge amount, so we probably won't go 40 minutes or anything. Just a couple things I saw that I feel I'll just bring up. The first one I saw, which I thought was interesting, was a Triangle Strategy being delisted from the eShop. I don't know if it's come back or not. I think it has something to do with like Square getting the publishing rights back from Nintendo or something. Because apparently this happened with Octopath as well, that it left the eShop for a little bit and then came back. And I think it was, Square getting the publishing rights for it. So if I remember correctly, Square with Octopath and Triangle Strategy, they published it in Japan, but outside of Japan, it was Nintendo. And I think because those games have done probably better than most people, even Square Enix would expect, maybe, that they're like, let's get the publishing rights back so we can.
Yeah, because I believe Octopath was, when that came out, that was like a surprise hit. Like no one expected that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was the first game to use the HD 2D engine. Big seller. I remember like it was hard to find in some places.
Yeah. And what I played of it, I really liked. It was just there were 2 times I tried to play it, and both times like life kind of got in the way, and I had to put it down.
Octopath is a really cool RPG. It's just it is kind of an undertaking to play just because of the way it's designed.
Yeah, it's very long. It's very grindy. Like it's a game that's not for Donkey. How about that?
Yeah.
I remember that controversy.
I always love it because it's like it's an RPG where it's like I was playing. I'm like, this is like the most interesting RPG Square's made Square's had anything to do with in a while. And I'm like, I don't have time to play this right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then I have a friend of mine who 100%ed 1 and 2, because he's a freak. But it is what it is. But yeah, my guess is Triangle Strategy. It'll probably come back. I just saw that and thought it was interesting. One thing that piqued my interest, for those of you who don't know, I'm a big fan of the James Bond series, and apparently there was a leak of a potential Lego James Bond game back during like the Lego Dimensions era. Like there was like a pitch for it, and there was even like a trailer that they made, but ultimately it got shut down because I guess they just thought it wasn't a good fit. But I found the video, and it's like, man, I would love the shit out of this thing. I would have loved it. Because it's just, like it probably just would have played like any other Lego game, but like to see, the iconic James Bond stuff get put into Lego form, and I doubt they would have done every movie. So it would have been curious to see which of the movies they would have done.
I feel like
how they would have handled the different Bonds or the different eras. It like there's a lot of potential in a Lego James Bond product, but I get the sense that probably even today it wouldn't happen because Bond's not really targeted towards children.
it's not, and it's a licensing nightmare.
Not really.
No?
It's owned by it's owned by one company. That's Eon. Eon Productions owns Bond, like the
True.
IP. When it comes to maybe the film rights, it's a little different. But as far as like, say, IO Interactive, who are making the Project 007 right now, like they probably just had to license it from Eon to get it. And Eon, EON, Everything or Nothing, that was the company formed by Harry Saltzman and Albert Broccoli, for the movie rights. So, and yeah, that IO Bond game is going to be awesome. I cannot fucking wait for that game.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's going to be great. But yeah, it's like that's something that's like, man, that would have been cool to see. It'll probably never happen. Like the state of Lego games are kind of in a weird spot, I think, because like Traveler's Tales, I think, is still trying to do what they've normally done. Like Skywalker Saga was like them trying to, I think, reboot it in a way. But then you've seen like 2K and some like indie developers make Lego games and kind of do their own thing with it, to varying degrees of success. I did like what I played of Lego 2K Drive. Like that's kind of a cool like open world racer, like a Forza for kids almost, because it's like, kind of open world design, and it's like Forza where you do different tasks or whatever, and it's a cool game. I like it. So you might like it, Mr. Racing Game Guy.
Probably. I just need to buy it.
Yeah, I see it for cheap all the time. So
is that one of those games where you can make your own cars?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Like you can make your own cars and all that.
Oh, goody! I can make abominations.
Of course,
that's the best way to play any of a game. They let you make stuff.
And speaking of abominations, this one is just for you. Speaking of racing games, I saw this. All NASCAR video games are being delisted from digital stores next month. So tell the world. I assume you know about this.
All NASCAR games published by 704 Games or Motorsport Game, whatever the company was that bought the publishing rights. Basically, that's all the games from Heat Evolution. Well, I think NASCAR 15 to NASCAR 21 Ignition. So you'd think I'd be upset about this, but most of these games were shit. So, particularly Ignition, that one, the most recent one, that game was abysmal. The only ones worth really playing are Heat 4 and 5, because Heat 5 is just Heat 4, but with the new season patched in. Those two are okay, but for the most part, if you're going to play NASCAR anything, just download iRacing. Like at this point, who will actually have the rights to make. They're currently making the next NASCAR games. So
NASCAR 25, that's going to be them.
Yes. They also bought Monster Games, who were the developer behind the Heat series, which I find very fascinating. So
are iRacing one of those like real hardcore sim racing types?
Yes, iRace. So iRacing's kind of cool. It is it was formed by former staff members of a studio called Papyrus Racing Technologies. They made a ton of racing sims back in the day, most notably NASCAR Racing, the Sierra published game. They ended up going out of business because EA bought the exclusive NASCAR rights for a while, and killed all competition and caused the stagnation of NASCAR video games.
Where have
Um,
I heard that before?
yeah. What's funny though is EA bought the NASCAR exclusive rights, made like 3 more games, and then said "fuck it" and just like dropped the license.
It
Um,
wasn't as profitable as the other sport they did that to.
True, although that has more to do with NASCAR just kind of starting to go down their downward trend for a while there.
That was what, like late 2000s, early 2010s?
So the last one EA did was, not counting the kart racer. They did a NASCAR '09. That was the last one they did before.
There's another kart racer? Because I know of the PS1 NASCAR kart racer, which is fucking awesome.
There's 3 of them. There's NASCAR Rumble, which is excellent.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
There's NASCAR kart racing. EA made it exclusively for the Wii. It's not bad, but it's also completely unremarkable.
Yeah.
And then there was NASCAR Unleashed on PS3, 360, and Wii, and it's trying to be arcadey, but it ended up just being kind of another flop because it controlled like shit. So
Yeah, I feel like that was an era where like arcade racers weren't in. You know, that felt like the peak of like the Gran Turismo Forza rivalry for like the Sim stuff. And I felt like it was with Forza Horizon, the first one, kind of helped bring like kind of arcade, like Simcade. You know, that's when that term kind of became a thing. You know?
Yeah. In regards to those games being delisted, though, most of them have physical release. Actually, I think they all have physical releases, and they're cheap as fuck. So
they'll probably go up a little bit.
Maybe. I mean, I'm a dedicated collector of NASCAR video games, and I have not seen one raise in price ever.
Well, with them being delisted, I wouldn't be shocked. And they are all on sale right now. Like looking at the Xbox store, like Heat 3 is $4. Heat 4 is $7.50. Heat 5, which looked like Heats, is $9.99. The gold edition of 4 is $9.99. That has Jeff Gordon on it. There's a Ignition 21. That's like $5.
That's not worth $1. That game is so abysmally bad.
Gotcha. And then there's a game called NASCAR Arcade Rush, which is not on sale. But my guess is that's them trying to make a more arcadey racer. I mean, by the name.
I don't even remember that one, so I don't even know.
So if I were to buy any of these, you would say like 4?
Heat 4 Gold Edition, probably.
Okay.
If Heat 4 regular is cheaper, buy the regular, because all Gold Edition has is Jeff Gordon.
Oh yeah, Heat 4 is $7.50. The Gold Edition is $10.
Just buy Heat 4 then. There's like no reason to buy Gold Edition.
Yeah. Because I'm not sure when they're being delisted. It said by the end of the year, so there might be a chance they'll be on sale even more in like a week or two.
The one that might go up in price just because it's kind of obscure is NASCAR Rivals on the Switch. It was made exclusively for the Switch because the Switch couldn't handle Ignition. I mean, the main consoles couldn't handle Ignition, but they made an exclusive one for the Switch called Rivals, and that one might actually go up just because it's kind of obscure.
Okay. Well, I'll add it to the wish list, and when we get closer to the end of the year, I'll double check and see if it's like. So if it's like $2, I'm like, yeah, I'll just grab it. Why not? It's not going to hurt the wallet.
No. That happened, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, and another racing game thing, but this is more of a me thing. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled is coming to Game Pass on December 4th, which is soon. And I'm glad to see the Activision Game Pass drops are starting to become a little bit more frequent because we've gotten the Crash trilogy, we've gotten the Spyro trilogy, and now we're getting Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, which I heard was really, really good. So I will be downloading that as soon as it's available and probably messing around with it. because especially after this week's game, I've been needing a bit of a palate cleanser for racing games. So I think this one will be good. I assume you've played this one.
Yes. Yeah.
So and this is it's like a remake of the original PlayStation one,
Yes,
right?
it is. So it's a remake of Crash Team Racing. They included though some content from Nitro Kart, the PS2, Xbox, GameCube game.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I've played Nitro Kart. Nitro Kart's fun.
Yeah, it they included some of the features from it, like the boost system. I believe is lifted. Well, the drift boost system is lifted from Nitro Kart rather than the original one that was in CTR. Which is fine. It's controls just as well. It's a good game. It looks good, plays great multiplayer.
Yeah, it's done by Beanox, I believe.
Which is really interesting to me because Vicarious made Nitro Kart. Well,
but
the studio formerly known as Vicarious.
They still live in our hearts. Because I think by the time this came out, I think they were fully in Blizzard at that point.
No, they were working on
Oh, they're doing Tony Hawk.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Maybe they were just busy making that. I don't know. And apparently also Tony Hawk 1 and 2 is still like rumored to be hitting Game Pass eventually. Cool. So I feel like that might be like a January thing. They'll be like, here's Tony Hawk 1 and 2, and then I'll download and play that. So I'm glad I didn't buy any of these games yet, because then I'd be like, shit. So, like when Spyro hit Game Pass, I downloaded that immediately, and I've been kind of casually playing it here and there. Because I've already beaten all 3 of these games, so it's just like a casual replay, and it's still the Spyro trilogy. I love it to death. So, but I'm glad to see more of the Activision stuff is starting to hit Game Pass. So maybe next year we'll get a bunch of the classic COD games, so I can finally sit down and play through those campaigns. That would be nice.
Yeah,
but we'll see what they do. So like Game Pass is looking pretty decent, like for the rest of the year. So
yeah. No, it's been pretty strong recently.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, with them raising the price, it's like, and you got to start adding some more stuff, and I think they're starting to get a little bit better about it. So hopefully that keeps going in. So, but yeah, that's about it. At least that's all I have.
So we had that Sega Genesis app thing.
Yeah, that happened. That happened after last week's show, because I don't think I mentioned it last week, but I know I mentioned it recently that like it had been over a year since we've gotten any new Genesis games on the app, and it was because I think it was July of 23 was our last update.
Yeah, and that was Crusader Ascenti, I believe.
It was Crusader Ascenti. I think there was another game as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And it was like, yeah, where the hell are these? Why aren't there more like Genesis games? What's going on? Like the licensing may be a little bit more difficult, but like, why not, right? And then it was like, oh, we got 3 new games, and somebody added me saying like, look, you made enough of a stink about it. And I'm like, if Sega actually knew of my existence, I don't know what I would think. I don't know what I would do with myself. Maybe ask for money. I'll shill for Sega all fucking day. I already do it for free. Give me a couple bucks. But anyways, for the Genesis app, we have it's Vector Man, ToeJam and Earl, Panic on Funkotron, the 2D platformer, and Mercs, which is in the Bionic Commando series apparently. And yeah, all 3 games are really cool. I like them. It's like Panic on Funkotron is the better of the ToeJam and Earl games because it's like a quirky little 2D platformer.
It's a game that makes sense. That's the best way to put it.
I think the original ToeJam and Earl makes sense. It's just when Berger said to me, it's just like a 90s like weird ET that clicked in my head. I'm like, it fucking is ET because both games are just getting ship parts and like, God damn it. He's
and it's
right.
Just so random, like just the way it works because it's all I believe it's procedurally generated.
Yeah, it feels like it. So I don't think it's a terrible game, but like it's one of those games that like it's definitely riding on like how quirky it is. But I think the sequel Panic on Funkotron it leans into that more, but also makes like a pretty decent 2D platformer out of it. So yeah, ToeJam and Earl 3 I've never played.
it's basically the first game, but they tried to make it like 3D open world, and it's just not fun. That's like all I've
Yeah.
ever heard about it.
And then they did that one for Switch. It was like that weird time where like Sega was letting like random like indie devs like here you can make Streets of Rage 4, or you can make a remake of Alex Kidd, like you can do a new Toe Jam and Earl. And I tried playing that one on Switch, and I was like, no, this
Yeah.
is not it for me. So but yeah, there was that. But really, the star of the show is Vector Man. Like,
Yeah,
it's still a great game. It holds up. I love the vibe of it. You know, it is a difficult game, but it's super cool, super fun game.
good old Blue Sky Software.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
In some ways, I prefer the sequel, but you know they're both about the same as far as quality goes. So
Oh yeah.
you can't go wrong. And I imagine we'll get Vector Man 2 at some point. So like the Genesis app, I still think I feel like it's the one that's lacking the most compared to
Yeah.
the other ones, maybe with the exception of like the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance ones. Because it feels like NES for the most part is where it's should be. You know, there's still a couple missing ones, but it's not as bad. Like SNES, I would say is pretty solid overall. Um, like I can't think of any that are missing. I'm sure other people could, but
mostly third-party RPGs. That's really about it.
yeah, but like most of those are already there anyway. So you know,
It's
especially when they
mostly
did
like
the pixel remasters. I know Chrono Trigger's the
true.
one, but Chrono Trigger's never going to be in there.
No.
Sorry, guys. But yeah, like the N64 one is fine. It's fine. Now they're doing the mature app, which I think is hilarious. Now I'm just waiting for them to drop. I'm waiting for them to put Conquer in there because I assume that's what they did it for, was to put Conquer in there.
It'd be stupid if they didn't, because like
yeah, even though Nintendo did not want that game to succeed, like they wanted that game to fail, and it did. So
yeah, and it partially drove Rare away.
yeah, I can't blame them. But yeah, like the Genesis one, I don't know. It's just like there's no Sonic 1. Like, why is Sonic 1 not in there? You know what I mean? Like,
It's
that's
weird. Because
weird.
I guess it's because the Sega Ages port. Well, I guess
but there's a Sega Ages port of Sonic 2.
Yeah, it's weird because there's like 4 versions of Sonic 1 on the Switch technically, because there's that
Sega. You're right.
There's that weird like Sega Master Genesis collection that's not particularly good, but it's there.
It's okay. It's getting delisted soon.
Oh, really? I guess it's good I have it downloaded.
Well, did we mention that like Sega was delisting all those classic games?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the classics collection is a part of that, which, you know, they're probably just gonna do a better version of that and hopefully have more stuff in it. Probably but yeah, I have that Genesis Classics. It's okay. It's
my favorite part of that is like the menu, like with the bookshelf and stuff. That's
yeah, it's quirky, sure. But yeah, looking at the lineup for Genesis NSO, like it's not bad, but yeah, there are some like noticeable like missing pieces in there, you know. Like where's Streets of Rage 1? Where's Sonic 1? Where's, you know, like what, you know, there's some others in there. It's just I don't know, man. Like where's Echo the Tides of Time? Like that's the better Echo game.
The good Echo game.
I don't hate the first one, but I get why people have issues with it. I mean, hell, even Echo Junior, like throw that shit in there. Why not? Basically, everything that's in the Sega Genesis Classics, there should be a version of it on NSO, and we're missing like a good chunk of those still.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Yeah. Other than that, though, we got new music on the Nintendo Music app.
I already know it this time, so you can't make me guess.
Yeah. Splatoon 2.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, it's cool. They still have a weird hatred for the 3DS, I guess. Like, why does the 3DS? 3DS gets fucking nothing.
That's so funny.
Actually, the Wii U doesn't either.
Well, there's some Switch games on there that are basically Wii U stuff.
Fair.
Hold on, let me pull up the app. It still does that thing. I've mentioned it before, where if I try to open it the first time, it doesn't. But if I open up the second time, then it works. Let's see which of these Switch games are Wii U games. Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8.
Yes.
So there you go.
Yep.
So technically there is Wii U stuff on there. unless randomly they're like, here's Devil's Third soundtrack, which kind of would be fucking awesome. I'd love that.
Tank. Just because.
Damn right. Nintendo Land. I like Nintendo Land soundtrack.
Yeah.
I liked it. Yeah. Again, just this app. It's like ask me in a year's time if it's any good. I think I think the foundation is solid, but it's just a severe lacking in content. That's just like ridiculous and doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, like if I was able to, I would go to Nintendo and be like, why can't you just add more stuff? You know, like drop like at least like one album every like 2 or 3 days. Like,
yeah, I don't get why
like,
they're drip. I don't get Nintendo's drip feed mentality, especially with music. Music's not something you should.
Yeah, like with the NSO apps, I can kind of understand it, and like if and it's just weird that it feels like the drip feed has almost gotten worse when it's like they have when they have all these apps, you know, like they have like NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, N64, Genesis, like was it like 5 or 6 different consoles to choose from, and we're still getting like bad drip feeds, you know? I mean, it's cool in a sense of when you hear this in NSO drop, you're like, oh, what is it? You know, we don't know what system it's going to be or whatever, and we can get some variety in there, which I like, but
Oh yeah,
I just don't get it. Like they'll be like, oh, here's Donkey Kong Land, like, okay, you know, it's like, oh, here's Tetris, you know, like we'll have Game Boy Tetris and we'll have NES Tetris, which is good, you know.
Still don't get 10 Gen Tetris, but that's never coming back.
No, I imagine the rights for that one. Does Tetris Company own that one?
I'd assume by proxy they do, because Tengen technically doesn't. Midway, actually no, Midway. Oh. Yeah,
I don't know. I can't imagine the legal issues of like certain older Tetris games. Like does like NES Tetris, does Nintendo still own that outright? Or does Tetris Company have a hand in that now? Like I assume Tetris Company would, you know.
Considering how they most Tetris games were delisted once the Blue Planet / the Tetris Company kind of took over everything. I think they pretty much control what Tetris can come out at this point.
Yeah, my guess is it was them probably acquiring all of this stuff and then like getting rid of like the old credits and then, you know, refacing them with like new people or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Like, will we ever get a reissue of Tetris Worlds from like the Xbox days where it had like the weird blocks with eyes and tried to have some weird alien story? No, we'll never get.
Well, that was made by the Tetris Company, so technically that one might come back.
It'd be nice. I would like to see a quirky Tetris story mode, but I don't think it's ever going to.
It actually depends on which version of that game you buy, because if you buy the PS2 version with the Roger Dean art, that version kind of sucks. But if you buy the one that Radical made on Xbox and GameCube, it's actually much better.
I have the Xbox version. I have the amazing double pack of that game and Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
You see, that version is superior, much better. And I should have bought that version, but no, I wanted the damn Roger Dean art.
I get it. It's a cool artwork. I think he did the original Tetris logo, didn't he?
I believe he did. I think he's done most of them over the years. That was the only one I know of, though, that he actually did the artwork for the game.
Yeah. I guess he had some time between Yes album covers.
Yeah, he's still doing them because they won't give up.
Yeah. Well, he's friends with Steve Howe. So, like, you know, when Steve Howe left and formed Asia, the Roger Dean covers went to them.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but we're not here to talk about Yes. We're here to talk about BC Racers.
Oh boy.
I don't know what BC stands for in this case. I don't know. Maybe, you know,
before comedy,
before competence.
Yeah. Did you know this game is part of a series?
The Chuck Rock series.
I didn't realize they were connected until I did research for this today.
When you see it, it makes sense because they both have very similar artwork. And it's a shame the Chuck Rock games aren't on 3DO, because then it would have been easy to just do those two as well and kind of lump them in together as into, you know, one giant stone of prehistoric schlock. Though the Chuck Rock games are perfectly fine. I've played them both before. Average 2D platformers, you know, nothing that spectacular. Like not on the Mario or Sonic end, but not on like the Bubsy end of trash. Like it's somewhere in the middle. Like I
Yeah.
would rather play Bonk's Adventure, but I think it's better than like Arrow the Acrobat.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? To get a sense for the quality.
like there was so many like mascot platformers during that era. Um, yeah, I'd say Chuck Rock is probably one of the. They're not. It's definitely not in like the top tier category, but it's definitely in the above average. I'd say.
You could do worse.
Yeah.
You could do a
Um.
whole lot worse than Chuck Rock.
So for those who don't know, like Chuck Rock and BC Racers by Proxy was actually a very early game from Core Design, who you probably know as the creators of Tomb Raider before before not Crystal Dynamics, before IDOS took their franchise from them and gave it to Crystal Dynamics.
Did Core ever get in trouble for their logo?
Um, because it looks like Pac-Man.
Yeah. Do you think Namco was ever like, hey, don't use that. That looks too much like Pac-Man.
I don't know. Considering it stayed the same up until around the point where Angel of Darkness came out, and they had changed it to look more like the IDOS logo. Um, it never changed. So I guess Namco just didn't care that much, or I guess I don't know.
You never know with like how certain companies are, you know, because like when I first saw the Core Design logo, my first thought was, oh, that's Pac-Man.
Hmm.
You know, and it was just something that was just on my brain. Like, did Namco ever go like, hey, why are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah, it's actually kind of interesting.
Maybe it would have been different if they tried to make a Pac-Man game or tried to like step on Pac-Man's territory, but you know, Core never really did. Core was just kind of like doing their own thing, you know, making stuff like, you know, Chuck Rock and Monty Python's Flying Circus, the computer game. And,
Yeah,
and yeah, like, you know, Hook on the Sega CD or
Rick
Wonder
Dangerous.
Dog. Did you ever play Wonder Dog? I've
I
played
have,
Wonder Dog.
I have, and I can never get past the first fucking screen.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
can't figure out
awful.
how to jump.
Yeah, shit's insane. And then, oh, they made Asterix and the Great Rescue, a game that I have a lot of nostalgia for and also hating its guts. But, you know, that's another
Yeah,
story.
they also ported. They ported. Anyone who ever watched a Happy Console Gamer, they ported his favorite game of all time, Dynamite Ducks.
Dynamite Ducks. Why
It's
do I
such a
know
shit.
that name?
Yeah, I think it's related to the Flickies, actually, for some reason.
Oh, God damn it.
It's not a good game. It's shit. But
Yeah. So yeah, it looked like they were doing a lot of you can tell they were a European company because a lot of their early stuff was on the Amiga,
yes,
which I always say is that's the Europeans, like
the
that's their shit. Like if you know somebody who's European or at the very least British and you're like, you know, hey, the Amiga, they'll go, oh, the Amiga.
well,
And
they
I'm like,
like made
fucking Christ.
they made stuff for pretty much all the old European computers. Like they made games for the Amiga, the ZX Spectrum, the Amstrad, the Commodore. Well, Commodore 64 wasn't. I don't think it was British, but
It's just I associate like that era, like the weird like pre like Windows home computers that are used for mainly gaming as like a
yeah,
European thing, you know, whereas I feel in America it was much more the consoles. But I know but they also did stuff for say the Sega consoles because Sega was pretty successful in Europe at that point, like more successful than Nintendo in a lot of cases. And they did some stuff for Nintendo, but not a lot. Like I think like Chuck Rock 1 is on the Super Nintendo, but that was kind of about it.
yeah. Most of their output was on Sega stuff. Like they made a whole bunch of Sega CD. Oh, Wolfchild was, I guess, on the SNES. That's something.
Yeah, that's something, sure.
Um, yeah, yeah. For the most part, though, a lot of Sega. They made a lot of Sega CD games, which I find interesting.
Yeah, well,
Um,
yeah, Sega CD was interesting tech at the time, so
I actually thought they would be an interesting company to talk about on as for like a 3DO developer spotlight, but then I realized the only 3DO game they made was the one we're talking about today.
yeah.
Um, which I find interesting. Just kind of like a weird choice.
Well, I don't think the 3DO ever really took off in Europe, at least as
True.
far as I know. Like it had that like cult status in Japan and was what it was here, but I don't think Europe ever really took to the 3DO.
Yeah,
So I think
and
because I think by that point, like once PlayStation hit in Europe, like Europe became PlayStation Town, and it's basically been that
yeah,
ever since, really.
like the thing I noticed too was so this game originally came out in 94 on the Sega CD. Core Design it self-published that version. It also got a Sega 32X port, which is interesting. What I found very interesting though was the 3DO version was published by Gold Star in
Yeah, and
LG,
LG.
which I believe was when Gold Star's console was struggling. They actually tried to publish some software similar to how Panasonic was publishing software, and I think this is one of the games they attempted to bring over, which is probably how it ended up on 3DO. Honestly, I think it had less to do with Core and more LG.
Because if I remember correctly, the companies who manufactured the hardware did not get any royalties from the software.
Nope, none at all.
So that's why like Gold Star's like, oh, we need to try to get some money back. So let's just port this game because it'll be cheap to do. Since it's already on the Sega CD, we can convert it to the 3DO pretty easily, and just kind of rush it out the door and maybe get a couple bucks on it. You know, that's my guess is probably what happened. They're like, oh, it's cheap, so let's just see what we can get done. And honestly, it shows. Like
Yeah,
I didn't play the other versions. I can't imagine they're much better than this one,
I
really.
played it
But
on Sega CD, and it's about the same quality across the board. So
yeah, this God, like you can tell this came out in a time where, like in the '90s, there was a little bit of like a caveman thing going on because you had like the live action Flintstones movie that was a big hit at the time, and you had other series like say Joe and Mac, which people seem to have quite a fondness for. I think Joe and Mac is whatever. But be that as it may, there was a little bit, and also Jurassic Park was kind of around the same time. So I think like the prehistoric stuff was kind of in vogue, um, and BC Racers feels like it was trying to capitalize on that to a bit of a degree. But the problem is they were like, oh, let's make like a kart racer that has like a caveman feel to it. Like, sure, why not? Right? Like conceptually, sure. The problem is it's bad, like
yeah,
really bad.
it's
And like I don't like Super Mario Kart. Like the original Super Mario Kart on Super Nintendo, I think that game does not control well. The rubber banding is really terrible. The whole split screen thing I think is atrocious. Like I have a lot of issues with Super Mario Kart. I would rather play that than this because at least Super Mario Kart runs very well.
yeah, like so. I guess the best way to describe this game is it is very much a Mode 7 style racer from the time.
Yeah, and you
Um,
can tell it was, I think, trying to cop from Super Mario Kart a little bit because it's like the top, oh, let's say like third or half of the screen is the racetrack, and then there's just this giant banner on the bottom with like, say, like where like your place in the race and all the other stuff. But it's a lot of empty space that's not being used. And
yeah,
again, it feels like they did that just because, oh, Super Mario Kart had this, but we can't copy it directly, so let's try to be a little different. I mean, there were some other racing games from the time, like I grew up playing Andretti Racing on the Genesis, and that's like half the screen is the race, and then the other half is like all the different placements, and like you can kind of swap between like say like different viewpoints, or like you have some options in that game for like what you want the screen to be, kind of a thing. But this doesn't really do that. So it feels
no.
like to me it's just trying to cop from Super Mario Kart in that regard.
I think a lot of it had to do with like so the Genesis famously couldn't do Mode 7 by
Yeah.
itself. It needed the Sega CD to do it, and for some reason, despite the Genesis being notably faster processing wise, it struggled with Mode 7. Like because I when I think about it, like even like Sonic CD, the special stages, they run like shit on the Genesis.
Yeah, they do.
Like the only way you can ever beat those goddamn things is if you're playing the Christian Whitehead version on a actually, that one did get a console port, but it's on a
It's on
is it on
Sonic
the
Origins now.
okay, yeah, the Origins collection. So
Yeah. But to be fair, those games were like completely remade. So they're now like in an engine where everything can run like buttery smooth.
yeah, because
So
I remember I used to never be able to get the specials the time stones
the time stones. Yep.
in CD because I could not do those special stages to
And
save my
also
life.
those special stages aren't any good. Like they're bad.
Yeah, they're very much they're interesting. I kind of liked the Sonic crap. I'm forgetting Sonic Mania interpretation of them.
Oh, the
Which
3D one.
yeah, I like
See,
that a bit
see, that's
more.
it. I find it weird when people compare it to like CD, like the Mania and CD ones. I'm like, I think they're pretty different. You know,
They're
like
different.
like the Mania, it's like more that pseudo like Saturn kind of era 3D, chasing after it. And that one, I don't know, I like that one a lot more than
Well,
Sonic CD because it feels
oh,
like
it's
in
definitely
Mania the
better.
challenge, like there's like the challenge is more like genuine, whereas in CD it's just like they're just kind of crap.
CD it was showing off the Mode 7, which the CD couldn't do very well to begin with.
Exactly. So
Um, yeah, but unfortunately, Chuck Rock, it's not much better. It's kind of worse actually.
yeah, so like this game, I put this game on easy, and I just did like one circuit run through, and I got my ass kicked like for most of it because the because as we were talking about, like the performance is so bad, like it is so slow. Like there are
Oh
times
yeah.
where it's like even the emulator, which is saying like, oh, it's running at 60 FPS, but like the the races like are just like at like 3, maybe 5 like frames per second. I'm like, how the hell can anybody like do this? Like this is ridiculous. And the steering is just bad. Like the handling is not good at all. Feels like you're on ice most of the goddamn time. Like I don't think there's a brake, or if there is, I just didn't push that button because it's like A accelerates, B is like your sidecar guy like smacking a hammer,
Yeah,
which like
because it has
rarely because it's trying to be road rash
yeah.
in that regard, but like rarely an opportunity presents itself to where you can actually like fight other racers. Like at least like Road Rash or some of the other combat racers like give you those opportunities to try to do it. And it's like you can either say like outrace them or you can just like fight people to kind of like cheat your way up. Like you kind of get the options to do it. Here, they don't really give you opportunity to use it. And the one time I tried to use it, I fucked up and I crashed into something. So, and then I
Yeah.
think it's the C button is like a turbo or something, like because like off to I think it's like the finishing line, they'll have like say like a little pit where you can get like I don't know pieces of dinosaur. I don't know, like those like cartoon like hams or whatever, like the ham with the big bone, but it's like green. So I'm like, what is this? Like I'm eating
Yeah.
lizard meat? Like what? And then and then it gives you like a turbo to go faster, kind of, but like also the turbo, there's rarely a good time to use it because all these tracks have all these kind of twists and turns, and it has such a like a steep learning curve, no pun intended, with figuring out the handling
Oh yeah.
that like the turbo doesn't help.
This game felt like it was trying to rip off both Mario Kart and F-Zero to a degree, but like it
Yeah,
couldn't do either very well.
exactly. Like there's not even if there was music, I don't even remember it.
It's
Um,
very much like Flintstones esque, like just like all sorts of
yeah,
stupid drum beats and shit. Like
yeah. I
very.
was kind of playing the game on mute while I was watching
Oh yeah. I
YouTube.
after like after 2 races, I'm like, I hate every song in this goddamn game.
Like I eventually did finish a race first, and it was the very last one because I eventually figured it out.
Hmm.
Like it's a weird sort of like letting go of the acceleration and then like turning, but you have to do it at a very specific angle to where you can actually like hit those curves. Like it's kind of funky, and then when like there's a lot of like ramps that you like launch off of like way too fucking high, and then you just like drop like a rock essentially, and you have to time that, otherwise like because if you get fucked by a stage hazard, you can't really come back because I don't think there's rubber banding in this game like at all, like not really, which presents its own kind of problems. Like I get why rubber banding exists for say the player and for like the AI opponents, but this game I don't really think it has any, because or at least like once you say like get stuck in like 7th or 6th or whatever, it's really hard to come back. Like you can, but like at best you'll maybe do like 3rd.
Yeah.
you know
I I thought that one thing I felt was weird about this game too was like it is so slow just in general, but like the turning it kind of messes with your brain because like the game turns really bizarre. Like you had said earlier, it feels like you're on ice, but the game is running so slow it kind of like fucks with your brain a little bit. Like you're like, it doesn't make sense. Like
Yeah, it like stutters like
hmm.
really badly, you know.
Yeah, like
And like and the frame rate, it reminded me of another Genesis racing game I used to play called Hard Driving, which that game has like really bad frame rates and is chuggy
yeah.
as shit.
I mean, at least
But that
hard
game you can like hit other cars and like
true.
explosions, and that's like cute. You know what I mean?
And I
And
mean,
I
at
love
least
that, and I love that intro song.
hmm.
Like Hard Driving has a charm to it, and this
Then you
does
can
not have
also
any charm.
hard driving also gets a bit of a pass because it's literally the Genesis itself is doing polygons, and it's like that's
Yeah,
really impressive. But holy
yeah,
shit, like
exactly. And it's not like, and it was before Virtua Racer or Virtua Racing, which really stepped the game up. But they had to have a giant cartridge that cost like $5 million to play it.
oh yeah,
So, so yeah. But yeah, this one is just when I was playing it, I just said to myself, I would rather be playing Atari carts right now. Like
I
I
mean
love
Atari
Atari
carts.
carts for the Jaguar. That game is awesome. In fact, I should have played that to cleanse my palate. Should just
You know
play a round of
what's
Atari carts.
hilarious about Atari carts too?
But
They use Mode 7 in that game, despite the fact that the Jaguar could do 3D. But I actually kind of appreciate it because it's like the Mode 7 works so well in that game. And then you look at like Checkered Flag, which is like a ripoff of virtual racing, but it plays like garbage.
yeah, but I think it was just like the Jaguar was such a weird architecture that like most devs just kind of were like, let's just make like a Genesis 16-bit style game on here and it'll run really well. And to be fair, yeah, most if not all of like the 2D Jaguar games run really well. It's like the 3D stuff where it kind of struggles, unless you're say like Tempest 2000 or something.
Tempest or Iron Soldier runs pretty
Iron
well.
Soldier's pretty good. Yeah, yeah. It runs really well. I wouldn't say it's a good game, but it runs pretty well.
It's
Or
a game.
Cybermorph doesn't run too bad.
Cyberpunk doesn't run bad. It just has a shit draw
Draw
distance.
distance. Yeah, yeah. I might as well be playing that game without my glasses.
Yeah. So one last thing about BC Racer, which I thought was somewhat notable and interesting, is the game was actually designed by Toby Gard, who is most famous as the creator of Lara Croft.
Well, you have to do something, right? Like
Well,
he was playing this. He was playing this game, and he's like, you know what? This needs more boobs.
well, believe it or not, he famously made the first Tomb Raider, and he ended up apparently one of the reasons why he left was actually he wasn't a fan of like all the sex appeal and stuff that IDOS was pushing. Because like he was the guy that famously made the nude. I believe he made the fake nude code in 2, which makes Laura explode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember hearing about that.
Because he left after 2, but then he came back to the series with
Legend.
Legend, which is arguably one of the best games in the series. So you can tell he definitely knew what he was doing. But I find it interesting that you look back and like this is one of his earlier experiments.
Yeah, yeah. Like, apparently, he worked on the whole like that like 360 trilogy of Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld. So his
Yeah,
hand was at that whole point, and yeah, that series of games, it felt like they were like toning down some of like the sexuality with Laura, and they're like, let's just make like a good game.
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what made the Tomb Raider games successful, or at least the first one, was it was just a good game.
Hmm.
Like it didn't matter.
Yeah. Unfortunately, after he left IDOS again, he then went on to make that really shitty Ninja Gaiden Z Yaiba game.
That
So,
game's not that bad.
is it? I heard it was bad.
What I played of it, I didn't hate, but I only played like 20 minutes of it.
Okay.
But I was like, it's fine. I don't know. Maybe it gets worse later. I don't know. Maybe it's because it has the Ninja Gaiden name on it. That might be the
Maybe.
the issue. Because I was playing it, not even thinking about Ninja Gaiden. I'm like, it's okay.
I just remember seeing the reviews for it and saw it had a 43% on Metacritic, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I
Um,
guess he owns a studio called Kathura Games, and they have a game called Dream Cycle. I guess
hmm.
never heard of it.
So, looking at reviews for BC Racers, um, ignoring like retrospective reviews, because ironically this game was kind of like all over the place. Some people liked, some people didn't. My favorite review is the review for the 3DO version from Next Generation. They rated it the worst racing game on 3DO to date.
Yeah, there's actual competition on this console for racing games, and this one, yeah, like bottom of the pile, absolute bottom of the pile.
I love their reasoning for this ranking, where they cited a lack of depth to car handling, ugly looking courses, and overall outdated feel of the game, and gave it 1 out of 5 stars.
Honestly, I completely agree.
You
Like,
know it's
there's all like the
bad when
different character sets, but I don't know if that really helps with like the handling or whatever. Like the courses are all kind of like your standard caveman affair, but yeah, it feels like this sort of like art style just doesn't work for a racing game. Like it's all kind of accurate, like for a platformer, sure. And if the game actually ran at a stable frame rate, maybe it would be fine. But as it stands, it's
especially
just
especially then when you even look at like the other racers on 3DO, like even like the when you go back to like the other probably worst racer on 3DO, which was Crash and Burn. Crash and Burn looks significantly better than this game in pretty much every way.
I would rather play Crash and Burn than this.
Yeah, I
Crash
mean
and Burn also runs
it does. I mean, it doesn't run good, but it runs enough to be
better.
playable. And it has charm. It's cheesy,
Yeah,
dated charm, but it has, ironically, Crystal Dynamics made that, which is really always funny when you compare them to Core. Um, but
yeah, they're like weirdly related.
yeah, it's weird how like Crystal always seemed to do things Core did, but better. It's
Yeah,
just a weird. But they
and
didn't make
then
her
oh
hurdy
yeah, and
gurdy
then
or whatever.
hey, we're not hating on hurdy gurdy here.
That's what I'm saying. Core made that. It's like one of the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
things.
Oh yeah, and then Core essentially became Rebellion, I think.
They got bought by
'Cause-
Rebellion, and they were Rebellion Derby for a while.
Yeah, they
I
probably
think they
still do
made one
stuff.
game.
I don't know.
I think they made one game and then went out of business. Actually,
I'm sure a lot of them got like acquired or whatever. So who knows? Maybe
yeah,
some people worked on BC Racers, worked on the Sniper Elite series,
maybe.
or Atom Fall, which is the game that they're coming out with next year, which is I think like some kind of Fallout clone or whatever. I don't know. I saw a trailer for it and I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure
No,
somebody is excited for it.
to be fair, that's my reaction to most game trailers these days. I'm always like, "What the fuck was that?" Okay.
Yeah, because it's all like, oh, look at this like survival thing or whatever. I'm just like, I don't care.
Or look at this cinematic gameplay. It's like, when do we get to the game? This is the game.
Yeah, like show
Um,
me gameplay, not just like in-game cinematics, but you know, like you can get away with that stuff if it's like a franchise people know. You know, like if it's like a long-standing franchise or like a familiar IP, like
or
say like an Indiana Jones, they can get
yeah,
away with showing a cinematic trailer for like the first time around because it's like, oh, it's Indiana Jones, so we know what it is. But if it's like a brand new IP or something that isn't as well known, it's like you can't get away with that because then people are like
yeah.
not going to give a shit. You need to
It's
show
like
them gameplay.
only Kojima can get away with that shit without people questioning it, because it's Kojima and that's just what he does.
Well, to be fair, the cinematics are, as you said, this is the game.
Oh yeah, Metal Gear Solid 4 is the greatest movie I've ever played.
I really hope that Master Collection 2 happens with 4 in it, so I don't have to buy a PS3 to play MGS4.
Yeah,
Because tentative plans are I'm playing all the Metal Gear series next year. So, and I have access to all of them except 4. And I'm like, I really don't want to have to buy a cheap PS3 and a copy of that game just to play that and then immediately sell it. I really don't want to have to do that. So if Konami, please, if you're listening, like please, Master Collection Volume 2, I'll actually buy this one. Okay. I didn't buy the first one because I had access to all the already. So Volume 2, at least let me buy 4. So I can just have it. And then keep the PlayStation 3 Blu-ray scene in there so that playing it on my Xbox would be funny.
that and the
You're playing on a Blu-ray. You don't need
yeah,
to swap a disc. What?
then the Psycho Mantis, like he's like, what, wireless or drive, like with like giant PS1s and stuff flashing in the background.
I would love that. Yeah. Though to be fair, I don't have the original MGS1, which I've gone back and forth on buying. I'll probably end up having to buy it on here anyway, but I like that they put them in separate, which was nice.
Hmm.
But yeah. BC Racers, it's not a good game. I don't like this game.
Must play, okay, stay away. I mean, it's pretty obvious, stay away.
Yeah, stay away from this trash. Like, especially when the 3DO has so much better racing games, like ones we've already covered on here.
I mean,
You know, like
play Need for Speed, play Road Rash.
Road Rash, yeah,
I'll
or
even
you
crash and burn at this point.
yeah, or play NASCAR Heat 4 on your PlayStation or whatever. That's probably a better game than this.
Buy a PS1 and buy NASCAR Rumble for like $1 because it's not.
There you go. That game is cool. I like that game quite a bit. Or play Atari Karts. Get the Atari 50 collection. Atari Karts is on there, and it's great. I love it. That's one of the best kart racers of that era.
Oh yeah, and it's on an obscure system, and not many people played it.
That's why you get the Atari. That's why you buy the Atari 50 collection and play it on there because it's so much cheaper.
Thank you, Digital Eclipse.
I love Digital Eclipse.
Yeah. So next week we have a very, very special episode.
Oh God.
I have many things to say, and we'll have friends for that one. So,
let's say one of our friends has said a couple things about it already to me in DMs, and I'm like, oh God.
I may or may not have seen a Blue Sky post that I may or may not be related to this episode, and I can't wait.
No spoils. No spoilers.
If you guys want a hint, look at the episode number next week, and that's all you need to know. But yeah, once again, guys, thanks for joining us on the 3DO Experience. The 3DO Experience can be found on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to check us out over on the Superpod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com. It's an awesome site with a whole bunch of awesome podcasters. We got videos, blogs, a whole bunch of stuff. I think we just wrapped up the SNES blogs, and I'm not sure what we're getting into next. I'm sure Aaron will come up with another theme pretty soon. But on that note, we also have a whole bunch of other shows over there like Superpod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, A Novel Console, Bar Silence, Fine Time, the Elder Trolls Gaming Podcast, Remember 64. I believe they're coming back pretty soon, so that'll be pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, R3 shows, Gaming Collecting, the 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, and of course, the Retro Wildlands, Press B to Cancel, and the pre-order bonus. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Bye-bye.